Hey everybody, welcome to a special edition of Tunnel Vision. This is the little segment we call Lunch with a Trojan. Started this during the quarantine. We've had a bunch of different people associated with USC football on the show, and we're going to have our first current USC coach on the show. We have USC's new defensive line coach, Vic So'oto. Vic, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. I was actually thinking there was lunch involved with this lunch with the Trojan thing.
Oh,
So next time you gotta get some food sent over here.
that is like a really good point. Like I was thinking about that when we first started the concept because we were like, let's do it at lunchtime, and maybe we'll like have pizza delivered or something. So I don't know what's your lunch of choice. We'll have to send something over there.
Oh, everything. Right? I'm not picky.
Nice. Well, thanks so much for doing this. Hopefully everyone can tune in. We're doing this live on YouTube. We're not going to do Periscope or Facebook, and obviously Shotgun and Keely aren't here. These are like our little one-on-one interviews, and we've had guys like Matt Leinart on and stuff, and that's been fun. And we wanted to get kind of different people associated with USC, and of course people that are working with the team right now. I think you're the newest member of the staff, just joining in February. How's the transition from Virginia, where you were, to back to Southern California been for you?
Yeah, it's been awesome. We actually got into our place right before all the quarantine stuff happened. So we were actually like dropped off all the boxes at our place, and then we're told to stay at home. So we lucked out. We got in right in time, and yeah, we're feeling at home.
That was that the plan the whole time? Because sometimes we see coaches will live at a hotel for the first year or something, kind of figuring things out. Especially you got 5 kids at home. That's a big move to move all of them.
Oh yeah, I mean, my wife and I, we've made a lot of moves throughout, playing in the NFL and coaching, and so we've always had this thing. It's kind of our motto. We stick together. So pulling kids in and out of and putting them in the schools, it's kind of just what we do. We stay together, and so I was out here for a month at the USC hotel, and then once we found a place, then everybody else came.
Yeah. So you find a place, and then whack, quarantine kind of hits. How's the family been dealing with? I mean, I know your wife. You said your wife's like a super scheduler and stuff, but if you're like doing homeschooling stuff and everything, you have to be with 5 kids at home, and you working so hard with the Trojans.
Yeah, believe it or not, the hardest kids are the ones that don't have anything to do. So our 1-year-old and 3-year-old that have nothing to do, just walk around and like close laptops and push iPads while the other kids are working. And I mean, it starts these little battles that go out through the day. But it's been awesome. We've been able to, go down and walk down to the beach when it was open, and then out here in Manhattan Beach, just walking around the neighborhoods and I'm the PE coach.
Oh,
The PE
okay.
teacher. So we do a lot of running and sprints and games, so to speak. So yeah.
Interesting. So the PE coach, how much time does that take up during your week? Is your wife, kind of telling you when you need to do things and what's scheduled and things like that?
Yeah, it's kind of open-ended. It's just usually right before a meal or before bedtime, just get them as exhausted as possible so they can just, do what they're supposed to do. So throughout the week, I mean, in between calls and meetings, and I'd say it's, I don't know, probably an hour and a half a day working out, running with them.
Maybe I was going to save this for later, but you talked about working out with them. Everyone's trying to do their workouts during the quarantine. I don't know if Aaron Osmus gave you this recommendation, but this was a pretty funny video with you taking all 5 of your kids different exercises and stuff. This seemed to do pretty well on Twitter and stuff. What was the inspiration behind this? And is this a common thing in your house?
Yeah, we do a lot of fun stuff. My daughters are really into TikTok, and so we've been trying to do dances or whatever. And Double A, Coach Osmus asked us to kind of give a video, a little quick, short, funny or inspirational thing to send to the team. And so I recorded this and sent it to the team, and then Spencer Harris, director of recruiting, was like, dude, you got to put that out on Twitter. And so I just threw it out on Twitter, and yeah, the rest is history. But disclaimer, there were a bunch of pillows and couch cushions
Okay.
where they were falling off. Yeah. So they popped back up, and we actually did it a few times after that just for fun.
Okay. So it wasn't like throwing them to a hardwood floor or whatever.
No, it wasn't hardwood floor.
I mean, the great part is, I mean, you're obviously a big guy, and just the ease of which you were lifting the kids, but the nonchalance of throwing them to the side, just like, oh, done with that weight, throw it off. It was just kind of funny. I think that's what it what part of why it works so well.
Yeah, well, we do a lot of wrestling. We call it wrestling, but it's a lot of just dad throwing the kids around because they love, especially the boys, they're crazy. So we do a lot of fake tackling and roughhousing. So they enjoyed it.
Yeah. You grew up Carlsbad, Southern California guy. End up, you go to school at BYU, bounced around the NFL for a while, and land with Bronco Mendenhall in Virginia for the last 4 years or so. Coming back to Southern California, does this sort of feel like home, or is it different? LA versus San Diego. Is this kind of like a home for you?
Yeah, it's definitely feels like home. It's been a long time coming. 15 years to get back to California, and being able to come back and see my family and aunts and uncles, and obviously not right now, but the opportunity to see them in the future has been, one of those things that we really, really wanted to do as a family at some point. And to be at USC, is a dream come true.
So the path to get to USC, you haven't been a coach, full-time coach that long, 3 seasons with Bronco Mendenhall, and you were an intern and a GA and stuff. But what would you think you learned those first 3 years as being a full-time defensive line coach that you'll bring to USC in Los Angeles?
But I think a lot of it has to do with the experience that I had in the NFL. And so, getting cut in the NFL sucks. Obviously, getting fired is never good. But then going to another organization and understanding how different coaches coach and philosophies in defense and how to run 3-4s and 4-3s, and just being able to soak up a ton of information in that short period of time in the NFL has really directed how and influenced how I coach our guys. And I'm never going to coach them to collegiate standard. It's going to be to the standard of the league. And I think that's the biggest thing I took away from being in the NFL and then playing or coaching at Virginia is that everybody wants to be great. And if you hold them to a great standard and they understand that you've gone through the fire, then their potential and reality, it starts to shrink, and they start to get closer and closer and closer to what they can be. And fast forward to now being at USC and being in LA and seeing the guys that we have, there's a lot of potential. A lot of guys have a lot of potential. And first things first was earning their trust and credibility, so to speak, because I am young. But I've done a lot of things that a lot of coaches haven't done. And I've been around a lot of places all over the country and understand, what, at the end of the day, what it really needs to happen as a defensive lineman and what the main goal is and then how to get there. A lot of guys know about what they want in the league, but then teaching them how to get there and holding them to that standard every day, is something that I take pride in. And whether it's meetings or even meals, like I want those boys to sit together and compete and eat and weigh in and like everything. I want them to compete because at the end of the day, when they do reach the next level, which is the next step of football, everything they do is graded and competitive. And I mean, I was telling, I think it was Peely, telling Brandon a couple of days ago that in the NFL, every Tuesday, the roster churns. Everybody thinks right at the end of August, you make the 53-man roster, it's done. But really, the roster is churning over and over and over and over again. And you can walk out of the building, and a dude's walking into the building that looks just like you, same size and everything, going right to your locker. So just having them get a broader picture of, what I'm teaching them now is not just for LA or for the Pac-12 or for, playing Alabama. It's for the rest of their life in this game.
You talk about the few different spots you bounced around the NFL, but you got to play for some legendary defensive
Exactly.
coaches like Dick LeBeau. Like, has that experience, getting little bits from, I think you talked about having like 6 different playbooks in your 4 years in the NFL, but
Yeah,
has that experience kind of helped you become a better defensive line coach?
totally. First being with Capers, then going over with Todd Bowles, and then there's Dick LeBeau and Rob Ryan, Jason Tarver. So understanding, the broad scheme of what different defenses and what different coordinators want. I think that's one of my strong suits, is understanding what is exactly needed for this defense. And then going to defensive line, being around, amazing defensive linemen and seeing how they work, but then also being around coaches and hearing, how it's put in meetings and how it's emphasized in walkthroughs and in practice and then game time. So I took all those, experiences in the NFL and try and pour it into our guys so they understand the standard that needs to be met every day.
So a lot of NFL influences, but also your college coach when you were at BYU was Bronco Mendenhall. Then you end up coaching for him too.
Right.
How has that kind of impacted your coaching career? Just knowing, basically what he was teaching you when you were in college were the kind of things he's expecting you to teach the new crop of college students when he was at BYU and then Virginia.
Yeah, so you kind of take bits and pieces from everybody that you meet, and I tell these guys, even recruits, I tell them, look, you go on a visit, make sure you leave with something. But I tell my guys, I've been around and had these experiences, but with Coach Mendenhall, just the length of our relationship and it being one where I played for him, played in the NFL and leaned on him for advice, and then was able to coach for him. I think one of the biggest things I've taken from him is obviously a standard of how you do things, but then he's very analytical and data-based. So research, and especially opponent scouting, watching game after game after game, going back 3, 4, 5 years of someone's coaching tree or play calling. Something that I realized as a young coach, that you've got to do your homework and you've got to go further and deeper until you fully understand. And it doesn't really have a time limit. Like Monday we'll watch 3 or 4 games. No, it's Sunday or Saturday after the game. You put that game to bed and then you go as long as it takes for you to understand what the opponent is trying to do and how the offensive coordinator is trying to potentially attack our defense. So just hard work and research, I think, is a lot of what I've taken from Coach Mendenhall.
So 3 years there, defensive line coach at Virginia.
Yeah.
And then so I thought the Tuesday before spring football, when all of you guys kind of came through the car wash, I don't know if you enjoyed that, but I thought that was one of the best things that you guys had done. We get to meet all the new, assistant coaches, and all of you guys had really interesting stories. And maybe one of the more interesting ones was your Super Bowl experience, reaching out to Todd Orlando, during the Super Bowl, kind of how you ended up here. I don't know if you want to recap that a little bit and how, if that was something you were looking to do. Were you looking to kind of get out and get back to the West Coast?
My wife and I had always, would always look and check up on what was happening on the West Coast. But as soon as I saw that there was an opportunity here at USC, I saw that, looked up, who the D coordinator was, and it was Coach Orlando. And I actually, back to researching, watched a lot of Houston tape and Texas tape to see what they were doing schematically, because he's on the forefront of this 3-4 attacking style type defense, and so I just followed him, and then he sent me a message, DM me, and said we'll talk after the game, and then the rest is history. So yeah, it's kind of happened really, really fast. And um, I may or may not have yelled Kobe when I followed him, just shoot my shot. But
Nice.
yeah, it is what it is. We're here now.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Well, hopefully it's been good for you so far. We had a Twitter question I'll throw up here for you from Mark.
Yeah.
What percentage do you anticipate playing with 3 down linemen versus 4 down linemen this year?
So I think it goes back to, how we can attack the offense. And I think game to game it's going to be different. I know Coach Orlando has said sometimes it's been 60-40, 4 down, sometimes it's been 60-40, 3 down. At the end of the day, at the end of the season. So I really just depends on, how best to get after the offense that we're facing.
There's been a lot of talk about Drake Jackson. He's one of your star players there, maybe playing outside linebacker in college. Is that going to be a battle between you and Todd Orlando, the defensive coordinator who coaches the linebackers, to keep him in that defensive line room?
No, it's not really bad. I think the best thing about our staff is we all really like each other and we're close. And it's it's not this is my guy, this is your guy. We're all Trojans. So going into meeting with Drake, I wanted him to understand that, look, you have this ability, and we're going to find the best way, to showcase that ability every Saturday. So whether it's outside backer, whether it's D-line, whatever it is, he needs to understand the defense as a whole. So who better to learn from than the D coordinator? So, yeah, we're going to work on, special things with him. Obviously, our strengths with Coach Orlando, the big grand scheme of things. And then pass rush, I have a passion for. So we'll do a lot of pass rush stuff together and get after the quarterback.
You did play as an edge rusher and defensive lineman. If Jackson does transition between the two, what would be what's the challenge going from like more of a D end to kind of a rush outside linebacker position?
Yeah, I think for anybody, the quality of reps that you get during practice, I think are huge. So making sure that we don't overload him in one thing and then ask him to do something else on Saturday. I think that's the biggest deal for us, is to make sure that he's getting exactly what he needs and the amount of reps he needs at each position, depending on the week. So understanding and learning and knowing the football, I think Drake, has a passion for getting better. And he has a really, really smart, IQ as far as defensive line play and, defensive front play, which is attributed to his dad. I think Drake is the right guy to be able to go outside backer, defensive line, because he just knows so much about front play.
Yeah, we actually had him on Monday. Well, I think we put it up yesterday. We had Drake and Dennis on, and then a prospect, and just to let people know, if you're putting in questions, we'll talk some recruiting stuff, but he cannot talk about specifics as far as any unsigned prospects. You can't mention that. So he can talk about philosophies, but I think the first question we had was something about, a player you probably can guess who it would be, but he's not allowed to talk about anyone that's not signed. You can talk about people that are signed, but not that. Todd Orlando ran a lot of like 3-man fronts, like hybrid kind of fronts at Texas. For you, like, what do you think the defensive ends and nose guards would look like in that defense? Like, kind of physically, what are you looking for? And do you have those kind of guys now, or is that something you have to address for recruiting, down the road?
Yeah, it's a great question. So ideally, right, you look at J. Tufele, you look at a Marlin, those are the guys that we're really trying to look for as body types, the 6'3", 6'4", 280 to 305 guy that can play on the inside. And then on the outside, you've got Caleb and Connor and Jake. Like ideally, I'd like a bunch of Jake Lichtensteins, how he looks. He's flexing on the beach. Like, that dude looks huge. But just those type of bodies that can do everything. And I don't really teach guys, you're playing this one specific position. I teach them as a group, and that's how I've always taught, just because you never know what happens with injuries, but also the ability for them to play along the defensive line is a gift that I tell them, look, you'll be able to show that I played a 5 technique, I played a 3 technique, I played a 1, I've shaved on the center, and all that film, to get you to the next level. So, and long story short, it's the tall, longer, thicker bodies at end, and then the more J, Tufele, Marlin, Tuipulotu bodies inside.
All right, so you got the guys you kind of want.
Yeah.
Byron just said fight on to you, Coach So'oto. Thanks for that, Byron. I'll put that picture back up. There, he gave you the fight on there. You mentioned Jacob Lichtenstein. So this was, I think you retweeted this from his Twitter. Like he's on a pier or something down in Florida. Just those look like 100-pound dumbbells or something. I don't know. What's going on here, Coach?
I have no idea. We actually, that was the topic of, we were actually making fun of him in our D-line meeting on Tuesday night. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on over there. But what I do know is his mom is big into fitness, and he has a dream one day to own a gym. So obviously, you look at him like that's a passion of his, and so getting him back here, keeping him healthy, and teaching him all the techniques and whatnot were what I was really, really looking forward to this spring, and so that'll just have to wait.
We talked about the workouts. We kind of joked about you lifting your kids, and you see, Jacob Lichtenstein there on the pier, doing these crazy curls or whatever. But every player you have in your group is going to have a different situation at home. You're a big defensive lineman, and if you don't have any weights at home and you're doing air squats or whatever you got to do, I mean, how have you been kind of working with them on things that they can do, and working with Aaron Osmus, trying to get these customized plans going where they don't have that centralized training area like you would if you were on campus?
Right. I think the greatest thing about our strength staff with AA is that he understands and knows each one of these guys and knows their situation. And so we've been able to work together to make sure they're getting what they need to, physically as far as lifting, but then also fitness-wise. I think back to the lockout that happened my rookie year. So I went undrafted and didn't know if I was going to get signed or not, but it was during the lockout. And everything that I heard from all my buddies that were playing in the league was, if anything, just come in shape. We'll have time to get our bodies ready and prepare for the season, but being in shape, or being out of shape is something that takes more time. So on my end, it's been make sure you're getting your fitness in, make sure you're getting your heart rate up every day, make sure, you're taking yourself to an uncomfortable point every single day, because we only had one practice, but from what the guys have said, it was the hardest one they've ever had. So we didn't even have pads on. And I'm just trying to emphasize and let them know if that's a helmet practice, imagine what full pads is, in August, right?
Yeah. Well, you guys were all talking about like the violence and physicality, and
right.
to be fair, a lot of the USC fans, they felt that was, been lacking for, I guess you could say for, but only having that one spring practice where there weren't any pads on, was there a way that you could try to, instill in them like, hey, this is the way these are going to be when pads come on, these are going to be really physical practices?
Oh, absolutely. I think regardless if you have pads on or not, there's a lot of ways to be physical and violent, and especially with handwork and striking. We were allowed to strike bags finally, and so being able to even strike those, but then competitive things where they're hitting each other, and a lot of defensive line play. You don't really need shoulder pads to be a great defensive lineman, because you should never be taking anything on with your shoulder. So handwork and hand placement and extension, all those things that are fundamentals of defensive line play, we did, and at a high level, and we're competitive. And so just reiterating to them, like, that's a helmet practice. Wait till the shoulder pads come on. Wait till we get full pads and we can actually start hitting the offense, and everything will just jump up. So being in shape and being ready, is first, like the number one thing we're talking about in our meetings.
Yeah, that's interesting. It was the hardest practice they've had. That fans are like that. They definitely want to see that. Mark had a bit of a technical question.
Yeah.
The previous scheme was a one gap scheme. Will your players be asked to two gap more in this new scheme? And if so, how hard is it for defensive linemen to learn those new techniques?
Right. So yeah, we'll be two gapping some. We'll be in one gap some. But the way I teach them, and the best way that I learned, bouncing around all these different systems in the NFL, was first explaining what the offense can do to them when they're in this alignment. And then once you take away all the possibilities, there's really, only a short amount of things that you have to really know. Then it comes down to technique and fundamentals. So making sure they can compartmentalize 3 down and 4 down, is key. And then understanding how they're going to be attacked just gives them confidence on game day.
I want to shift over to the recruiting aspect. We kind of talked about that a little bit. What's you've been your philosophy, I guess, as far as recruiting goes? We've seen, you guys be very active on social media. There's been, guys you can't talk about, but there's been new commitments and stuff. It seems like a resurgent of recruiting effort, at least on the defensive side of the ball. Like, where did you learn how to recruit, and what's your main philosophy, I guess, for recruiting?
Right. So the first part, I feel like in anything, if you can trust the person that you're talking to, then you'll do whatever, needs to be done. And so first and foremost is building that trust and credibility with, our recruits and just building a great relationship. The second thing is, if I was being recruited, I would want to know, can this guy get me to where I want to go? And every player in America wants to go to the NFL. And being able to tell those guys, look, I just left the NFL. Well, now it's a lot longer ago, but there's guys that were my teammates that are still playing in the NFL, that I've been there and I know what it takes and what's going to happen when you get there. And that's just been my philosophy is being straight up and upfront and honest with them and just being myself. Like I'm a happy guy off the field. I like joking around and having a good time. And then when it's time to get to work, it's time to get to work. We're going to go out there and we're going to go do our job to the best of our ability. So recruiting wise, just creating a relationship with the recruit and just showing them that, this place has unbelievable value. USC has unbelievable value by itself, right? And then you add the opportunity to come in here because of the guys that are leaving that are leaving my room. There's a huge opportunity for somebody to come in and get reps. Whoever we sign is going to get reps because of attrition. So just allowing them to, wrap their minds around, an opportunity like, 6 months from now, I'm stepping out into the Coliseum and, strapping it up and getting out there and playing. That's been, the biggest thing this offseason with recruits is helping them understand, this stuff is real, even though we can't have these tours and can't have them on campus, but this stuff is real. My room is real. You're going to show up and you're going to put those shoulder pads on and that helmet on and run out into the Coliseum and play. That's been my message this offseason.
We talked about that Tuesday, car wash of all the interviews, and hearing a guy like Dante Williams, who was named, Pac-12 Recruiter of the Year, talk about if you're up 23 hours a day, you need to be recruiting all 23 hours. A guy like Craig Niver just has like this energy and he's just an outgoing guy. And you could just tell those guys are going to be good recruiters. Is having those guys in the meeting rooms helped you kind of, be a better recruiter as well? Like guys that have been, they've been doing it a little bit longer.
Oh, absolutely. And I never, look at somebody in regardless of their circumstance, and not try to take something from them. And I've been able to have conversations with those guys and everybody on the staff and really take, what could help me. Because again, if I'm trying to, act like Dante or act like Craig, obviously everybody's going to see right through that. And so taking what they do and taking what I do and things that I really like from them, yeah, I learn as much as I can from each one of those guys. Everybody in the building, really. Like I'm just a sponge.
What's the recruiting pitch like? Like, assume I'm like a bigger, stronger, faster guy than I am right now. Like, if I'm, you might be on a Zoom call with a prospect. Can you do those now? Can you do the Zoom calls? Can you do them?
Yeah, yeah. So it's treated like a phone call.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah. What's the, I don't want to put you on the spot, but what are some of the high points or whatever of your pitch to guys that maybe are out of state and haven't really been to see USC? Don't, they didn't grow up like a big USC fan or something like that.
Right. So if they're out of state, I tell them, look, LeBron came here. Kawhi won a title and came here without a team. Right. And LeBron basically redshirted a year before he got AD because he understood what this place is, and the combination of faith, family, and football. Back to what Coach Helton says, we're a faith-based organization based off our head coach, and you'll never have to do anything on Sundays. Next, we're a family. You talk about Trojan family. I have friends that are Trojans that know everybody around this area and still come to games and actually reached out to me and that were congratulating me when I got here. And then football. I mean, we have the most draft picks ever in college football, and we live in the biggest media market in college football. That this place is just, there's so much value to this place. And then when you add our defensive coaching staff and our offensive coaching staff, our head coach, we're just pouring gas on something that's already burning. And yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's good. All right, I'm sold. The landscape of college football, we've heard this week from the NCAA about the name, image, and likeness stuff.
Right.
I've seen different, sports. I think Colin Cowherd was talking about this. It'd probably be a big advantage for the Pac-12 having like the Googles and Apples and some of the big technology companies here, or Hollywood in Los Angeles. I mean, this is obviously way early, but
Right.
is that something you can envision? Like, wow, that's something we could use in our recruiting pitches, having this kind of stuff out here.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of these guys too now with the quarantine, they've gotten like Instagram savvy and go Instagram live, and they, start hosting, these little live chats. And I'm telling them, look, you like doing that, imagine getting paid for that, or having something that you can get paid for in the biggest media market in the world. So obviously for us, that is a huge, huge tool and a huge recruiting pitch for us, just because, LA is unlike any other place in college football.
Yeah. It'd be interesting. You're talking about, you're Norman, Oklahoma, or you're in Los Angeles. Is there a bigger market? I don't know. I mean, that's, but that obviously that'll be next year or something, but that's something I guess you got to look forward to or think about. Oscar wants to know where you got your hat. So I just put that up there. Is that like a bookstore thing?
I've heard a lot about this hat. I just got it in my locker, to be honest. It was just in my locker, and I love like flat brim snapback hats. So I've heard a lot of fans want to know where to get this hat. I would defer that to Spencer Harris because this is not my realm of expertise. But
yeah,
I love this hat. Yeah, it's my favorite hat.
Do you just get like wherever you go, like a whole bunch of gear, and then what do you do? Like you leave Virginia, like do you donate the gear? Do you keep the gear? Like what do you do for all that?
Oh yeah, I give it to coaches' families. I just a lot of the coaches that were staying just left a bunch of stuff for the guys back there, and then I have a ton of family, so there are no shortage of bodies to wear anything.
Yeah, so there's cousins running around with BYU gear from a while back, and
oh yeah, definitely.
Lots of Virginia stuff.
Yeah.
Back in the recruiting, we had a question from Justin. Do you have a specific region to recruit, or do you have a list of specific players to recruit? Get after it, outwork the competition, from Justin.
Yeah, so I have Utah, I have San Diego, and Hawaii.
Okay, and then is it mostly by region or position, or do you kind of do a little bit of both?
Yeah, a little of both. There's a regional coach, where you have and you're more of interacting with the high school coaches.
Okay.
And then positionally, obviously, your position, you recruit wherever they are.
You only got that one spring practice.
Right.
Did you get to learn something, from watching it back? I talked to Drake, Drake Jackson. He said he'd watched it like 50 times or something. What did you learn from that? And you kind of watch it over and over just to try to get whatever you can out of it, squeeze the life out of that one practice you guys got.
Right. Nothing out of the norm, really. We went over these calls and went over, everything we were installing, and then we still had, a ton of mess ups. So it's kind of just, how football is, getting more reps. But I would say, yeah, we actually had a lot more individual time. Probably one thing that was different than I'm used to. So we got a lot of work done one-on-one with the D-line, and then, with some of the pass rushers. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing from watching it over and over again is we ended up having a lot of time.
You mentioned before there's going to be a lot of openings. There's going to be playing time because it's a very veteran group. You got guys like Drake and Jay Tufele and Marlon. They'll dominate the headlines, but a guy like a Brandon Peely,
Right.
what do you think of him? Like, is someone that he's got that size and athleticism that just doesn't grow on trees. He's got a lot of potential, it seems.
Right. And so we go back to the potential and reality conversation, and this is something that we've had over and over in our defensive line meetings, is that if you want to reach your potential, man, it's going to take hard work and trust and violence, out there on the football field. So Brandon, he's got everything that you want for in a defensive lineman, especially at the next level. And so my question to him is why aren't you playing more? Why aren't you getting TFLs? Why aren't you, that's the initial questions. And then it's, here's how you get that done. If you do these things, you will be able to, achieve your dreams and what you want. But then overall again, back to competition, overall in our room, you come in and you beat somebody out, Mm-hmm. I think the hardest thing for me in the NFL was knowing that I was better than someone or somebody was better than someone but wasn't playing because they had a contract and they were getting paid $10 million and the other guy was paying league minimum. So for my room, it's open competition, man. You go out there and you go kill it, then you're going to play because everybody in the room knows who the best players are. It's not a secret amongst the players. And that's, my gift to them is if you go out and produce, then you'll get the opportunity to produce on Saturday.
Yeah, like if you played someone over someone else for political reasons and the whole room knew that guy wasn't better,
Exactly.
That's going to come back on you, right? I mean, they're going to know, like, I don't trust him.
Right, and so that's more common in a lot of places and in a lot of places that I've been. And so allowing them to understand that if I do this work, if I do X, Y, and Z, and I'm out there producing on the practice field, and I'm beating a guy like Austin Jackson in practice, then yeah, you deserve the opportunity to go out there and play. So again, back to the competitive nature of football, but then the competitive nature of being in our defensive line room, and then this time right now, where nobody really knows what anybody's doing, but when it comes back time where we can actually get these guys on campus, we're going to compete and see who's been doing what,
Couple more for you. Sorry, I'll let you go. Thanks. I appreciate your time. Connor Murphy's an interesting guy. 6'7". How do you how's he look to you so far, and how do you envision using him in the defense?
Yeah, Connor's in another competitive spot. I really, really like his size and length. I like his ability to get after the quarterback. But I think we go back to what I'm looking for as a defensive end. He's got everything that I'm looking for as a defensive end. I think putting on more weight and being stronger at the point of attack, we've talked about. But if he's, let's say we're in a third down package, and he's the 3 technique getting vertical on a guard, that's a tough deal for a quarterback to see over that 6'7", So Connor, I think, has huge upside. Again, it comes back to what he's going to be doing, these next few weeks, this previous month, to set himself above everybody else.
We got another YouTube question from XX Dos Equis, maybe. I don't know. Would you rather do Dos Equis now instead of Corona? But I'm just kidding. Whatever. So, question for Coach: what are the expectations for defensive line this season and down the road?
Be the best. I think that's the expectation for everybody in the building. You don't come to USC to be average. You don't come to USC to finish second. And I did not sign up for second place. And so I think we have one of the most talented rooms in the country. And then allowing them to showcase that ability on Saturdays is my job within the defense, right? And that is the expectation, is to be the best and be the best in everything. I want to have the best meeting. I want to have the best individual drill. I want to have the best, performance in team one, team two. And the more that they adopt that mindset of going out and winning every day and winning, the meeting, making sure they're taking the right notes, winning a tutor session, right? Winning a presentation. Jay and Brandon just had a big presentation. I asked him, how'd you do? And Jay was like, man, we killed it. Brandon came through and did this and that. And that's the kind of mindset, that I want them to have all the time. So to make it simple, the best. I want this D-line to be the best. I want this team to be the best.
Last couple of things kind of on the recruiting front. It's unique right now. There's been a lot of momentum. I mean, I think you guys are doing a really good job on social media. We've seen that step up a lot, but the energy, it just seems like it's really high right now from the staff and from everyone that's working there. Can you talk about what it's been behind the scenes like that to kind of create that energy and kind of create this buzz during a time when, players can't visit, they can't really do anything. It's a dead period, but you still are able to generate some recruiting buzz.
Yeah, I think everybody does it their own way, but I think overall we just know what we have, and we know what we can get done this season, and just allowing everybody to feel like we feel. Like I feel fired up every morning that I'm a USC Trojan. I'm fired up that we get to hopefully play this season. But I look around our room, I look up and down our roster. We've got a lot of guys that are really, really good players and a lot of experience coming back. And so that, if that doesn't motivate you, then what does? We've got a roster that can do it, and we believe in them, and then we believe in this place. So talking to recruits, it's not being fake. It's not selling them a pipe dream. Like, this thing is, we're USC, and we're not selling the brand. We are using the brand to show them that this is not only USC, what you see in all those games with Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart and all the Heisman Trophy winners, but come and look and see what we have now. Like, look who you're going to play with. It's unbelievable. For me, if I was a recruit, just the opportunity to be at this place at this time. A lot of stuff that happens in the NFL is all based on timing, and same thing with recruiting. The timing right now for this class to come in and not only have a huge impact, but the pieces are all around, from the quarterback, right, to the receivers, to the opportunity at the D-line, a veteran secondary, inside backers that'll be in their third, fourth years, to where you come in, you're not only contributing, but you're contributing around guys that have contributed their whole career. And you don't find that often. It's usually a lot of attrition, and then you're reloading a bunch of guys, or it's young, and everybody's learning on the same page. We have a very layered and experienced roster that just fires up everybody on our staff.
Cool. I got a little comment here. We're going to end it there. I want to put this YouTube comment up because it's a good one. A compliment to you. It's pulling up here. So he said, this D-line is going to be real good with this man in charge. Hard to disagree with that. So we do appreciate your time coming on here. Yeah, thanks for doing this, and hope you and your family stay safe and everything keeps working. But thanks again for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you. Next time, lunch.
Oh yeah, next time we'll do lunch, and follow him on Twitter at Coach_So'oto. Wait, was Coach without an underscore? Was that already taken? Did someone already have that one?
I don't know. I just threw it out like this.
You're just like, I'll just pick that one.
I just picked that one because I smushed it together and it didn't look right, so I just.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it's So'oto, right? Like there's a little pause. I'd say that right?
So'oto,
With the pause. Yeah. Okay. I think Tim, when he introduced you, he said Soto or something, and you're like, wait, nope, let's not do that. So is it?
Yeah,
there's been a.
It goes back to my mom. My mom, make sure they say your name right. I'm like,
yeah.
All right, Mom.
That's good. Well, it's not that hard. There's some Polynesian names, obviously, that can be very difficult. There's a lot, that one's not too bad. So if someone says it wrong, good to correct them. All right. There you got your dumbbells are there. Nice. Who's that one? Who's this one?
Yeah, this is Mac. Mac's our future 3 technique.
Nice. All right. Hey, Mac. Well, thanks for letting your dad come on the show, and thanks again for joining us. And
yeah, no worries. Thanks.
Everyone out there, thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of Lunch with the Trojan, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye, bud.
All right, thanks.